everybody, welcome to HP Tuners episode 3. Today we're covering the VCM Scanner. I'm Tad with Tunedbytad, and I'm happy to have you all here so we could learn how to use the VCM Scanner better. We're going to learn about its value, what you can do with it, and maybe a couple little extra tricks. If you're a beginner, there's going to be stuff for you. If you're advanced, there's going to be stuff for you. And if you hang around and you pay attention, there's going to be some secret information. It's not going to be so secret. I'm going to tell you plainly. And if you remember it, there's going to be some questions at the end. You answer that question in the stream correctly, you could win an MPVI2 like this with 2 credits sent to you. So we'll cover that later, but pay attention and you can win one of these. So welcome. Everybody's here. Let's have some fun and learn a little bit about the scanner. So let's take a look here at the VCM Suite Scanner. We're going to move over to the software here and pull this up. Okay, here's our VCM Suite Scanner. This is what it looks like. Let's talk about what this can do for you. So back to me talking. The scanner itself has a lot of, what is the scanner? The scanner basically allows you to see the sensor data coming into the computer, as well as the decisions and output that the computer's making. So basically all the data, all the parameters and data, sensor data coming in and out, you can see that information. Why is that information important to us? Well, it allows us to have capability. Without it, you're just blind. You can't see what's going on. So today I'm sitting in a C7 Corvette. It has a lot of information that's available through the dashboard, but there's information that you cannot see that you might be interested in. Air intake temps aren't on the dashboard on this Corvette. That's something you might want to see, and the scanner allows you to do that. On other cars like a Silverado, you might click through the 8 gears and not even know what gear you're in. These transmissions shift so smooth. So let's not be blind. Let's be able to see what we're doing. It's a legitimate tool. We wouldn't second guess as mechanics of buying a very expensive torque wrench. For the price that HP Tuners is, it is a very powerful tool as an editor and as a scanner and a diagnostic tool. What can you do with it? Well, first of all, you can do diagnostics. Let's talk about a real world usage of the scanner for diagnostics. So last week I was on my way to my day job, and my little blue Camaro driver decided to puke an ignition coil. And I needed to figure out which ignition coil it was. I always travel with my tools. I'm always using HP Tuners daily. Pulled it out of the trunk, plugged it into the car, opened up the scanner, opened up the misfires, misfire, cylinder 2. So I had some basic tools. I moved coil 2 to coil 1 and saw that it followed that coil. I followed up by moving the spark plug. It did not follow the spark plug. It followed the coil, the misfire on the screen. And I was able to actually walk to a parts store, buy a coil, pop it on the car, and drive to work, and was only a little late. So that's a real diagnostic, real-world way that you could use the scanner. You could find hidden performance by finding things like ignition retard or throttle being pulled back in a performance situation. Highly underrated with the scanner is documentation. So if you're working at a repair facility, or even if you're racing, to be able to document every time you've run the car, or be able to document every time you've test driven a car, to have a continuous record of whatever you're scanning is an incredibly powerful tool. Also, remote tuning becomes very, very valuable. Whether you're a basic user or you're a professional tuner, you can be the professional tuner and the client sending you this scan, or you can be a client and only have basic understanding of the scanner, but you can scan at the track or on the dyno and send this to your professional tuner, or do it all yourself, but being able to remotely do it. So I would say I've been using the HP Tuners product for since its inception, but 10 years ago, I had clients hotspotting from their phone on the trunk of their car in the staging lanes, literally pulling the scan and sending it to me via Wi-Fi on their phone uh, from the trunk of their car, getting an update from me and doing the next run with a new professionally edited file because of the scanning capabilities are that good. So diagnostics, hidden performance, documentation, remote tuning, these are all very powerful things for having the scanner. So the first thing we want to do is we want to be able to use our interface. We're going to plug our MPVI2 into the car and plug into it. And we're going to segue into a little discussion. I get this phone call all the time, so I'm going to take us down a little road here. There's a card that comes in your scanner, and it's got some real basic instructions on how to connect for the first time. The first time you connect, you have to sync the interface and maybe make an account with hptuners. And once you do that, you'll be able to connect. So just keep that in mind. There's actually on hptuners, YouTube, there's actually some instructions on how to do it. That's a video, or you can just read the instructions. But basically, you have to go through and sync your interface and register it. So we have it plugged into the car, cable plugged into the laptop here. Let's go and just make sure we have a connection. If we go and look at the VCM Suite scanner, we're going to learn about the VCM Suite info. So that's located at this blue button right here with the white eye in the middle of it. And we click that. And let me turn my car on here. Just going to put the key forward. Takes us a couple seconds. There we go. So there is going to be some sensitive information, so I'm going to duck this off the corner here. But if you push this button here, it will connect to the vehicle and will display all the information about this car. So you can see here that it's done a connection, and all the information about the car and the cable are displayed in the VCM Suite info. If you happen to have a warranty if you happen to have a service information, or you want to contact customer service with a particular issue, they're going to ask you for this VCM Suite info, and this is how you get that information. You hit that eye and it pulls that information. If you want to save it, you just hit the floppy. That's the icon for save across all of the hptuners products, and it's going to ask you to save that, and you can save it to wherever you want. I already got a little folder all set up here for episode 3, and you can save it and name it whatever you would like. So that's how you pull a VCM Suite information and save it to your laptop or computer. And once you've done that, you've established your connection. You can straight away just go and connect to it, but this is a good way to check. It lets you see the cable's information and the car's information. And we talked about documentation. That file also keeps your check engine information, or DTC information. Is a good way to document that. So we're going to talk about the tabs here at the top of the screen. We got Help, Tools, Layout, Vehicle, and Log File. So let's move from back to front here. We're going to talk about the Help. So when you're using hptuners, you're never really on your own, and there's not a whole lot to fear here. You can always save everything and go back, but if there's something you're fuzzy on, the Help menu will take you to hptuners online and pull up a PDF style online, very large help resource. Also, the hptuners.com web forms are very, very helpful. There's some professional tuners on there. There's some very high-end enthusiasts that have radical projects. I've found everybody there fairly friendly and really able to help quite a bit. There's a lot of cutting edge stuff that happens on there too, but you can also get basic information. Part of the connecting the first time that's in the instruction set is resyncing your interface. You would click that and it would go through the process of resyncing your interface. The VCM suite information, which we've covered already. So you have the I here with the blue circle, and you have it here available through the help. Then you have your application keys. So your application information is going to be there. I'm not going to open those up because I don't want to display my information to the whole internet. That information you should keep private to yourself too. That's how you register your device. And then an important button here that is easily overlooked is the About button. So the Help About actually tells you what version of the scanner you're currently using. And if you're connected to the internet, Wi-Fi or hardwire, it will search for an update. So this is the easiest way for you to update your hptuners. There would be a box right here that says new version found, and you could click on it and automatically do an update for you. All right, let's move on to the menu bar tools. So this is another value and power section for hptuners is in the tools. Unit conversion, I find this highly useful, somewhat self-explanatory, but finding how to convert from Fahrenheit to Celsius. We can learn later how to make the system default from Fahrenheit to Celsius, but if you want to do a quick conversion, there's Fahrenheit to Celsius, miles an hour to kilometers, PSI to KPA, mass airflow from pounds per hour, pounds per minute, and grams per second, cubic inches to liters. This stuff can become in very handy if you're tuning most GM cars and even the Mopars. You might be referencing stuff in grams per second that you might need to translate into pounds per hour or so forth. The dynamic converter is packed with all kinds of different little calculators. You could change time, temperature, whatever. So like we'll do something very simple here. If we want to do pressure, although listed above, if you wanted to know what kind of force inches of mercury is in kPa, that's the sort of thing that's available. You could also change it to PSI. So, 100 kPa equals 14.5 PSI. You can move back and forth. You have an injector calculator, tire size. If you are unable to find your tire specs or you don't have a tape measure, you can read it off the side of the tire and type it in and get your tire height. Comes in super handy once you're using the editor. All right. So I really like this tool. I use it all the time. Get friendly with it. It's super easy. We have a basic calculator here. It just keeps you from going to your Windows or your desktop. It just is part of the hptuners. An advanced parameter. This is the math parameter. If you guys want to, talk in the chat and ask whether you want this covered, it's more of an advanced feature, but in general, what this feature does is allows you to transform or do math on any kind of sensor data or calculation. You can make custom PIDs or channels with this by doing math. It's a lot like an Excel calculation or math formula. You can actually change things and pump things out. That's a little more advanced. Again, type in the chat if you'd like us to review that on a future episode. Quantities and units. These just show you the IDs, the PID, the parameter ID of the different measures of unit and quantities. That's very valuable if you're working with the math section. And here at Tools Options, you will find the way to change your hptuner scanner from Imperial to metric, Fahrenheit to Celsius. So if you're overseas and you don't want to see that stuff in Fahrenheit, here's how you do it. If you're confused by Celsius and you live in North America and you want to see it in Fahrenheit, here's how you do it. All right, let's moving on. Layouts we're going to cover later on in this session in much detail. Moving on to vehicle. This is how you connect to the car. So let's connect to the car. I currently have the ignition on my vehicle. Fun fact, if you have a later, like 2015 and on GM that has a key that is separate and it doesn't have a real ignition key cylinder, it is a button on your dashboard. In most cases, you hold that down for like 6 seconds without hitting the brake pedal, and that will come on, and that will enable it. Some of the Mopars are the same way. So my car has got the green light on the dashboard telling me that the power of the ignition is on. We can go to Vehicle Connect, and we're going to connect to the C7 Corvette that I'm sitting in. So Vehicle Connect. It gathers some information. I like to call that the handshake. And now we're connected to the car, and then you can just hit the start scanning button. And now we're online. So you can see this information is drawing across our screen. And if I push the throttle, you can see a change happen on the throttle. You can see we're real time connected to this C7 Corvette. Pretty cool. I love it. All right. Let's see where we are. So we're going to stop our connection to the vehicle. You just come up to the blue square and hit stop. In review, you have a start scanning and a stop scanning, a disconnect and a reconnect buttons, all available here. And those parameters or features are enabled through the menu bar or through the icons. So there's two ways to get it. So we could start here and stop here, or we could start here and we could also stop here. So we made a little baby log file that we did a recording here of, I think, a whopping 8.5 seconds. If we come to the bottom of the screen, you can see right here that the time is 8.5 seconds. So we have a time stamp, and then we have a time duration. You can tell how far we're zoomed in. And we can tell the date that it's created. If we wanted to zoom in, we have zoom up in here at the top of the screen. Zoom in, zoom out, zoom in. And as we zoom in and zoom out, if you watch our time base at the bottom of the VCM scanner, we're at 10 seconds. If we zoom in, cuts it to 5, 2, zoom out, back to 10 seconds. And if we were to play that back, this window here in time is 5 seconds. So it would take 5 seconds for the line to cross across the screen. Whether you're recording or whether you're playing it back, this is how long it takes for time to march across that screen from left to right or right to left. All right. So we made a little baby data log of me just tapping the throttle on the C7 Corvette. Let's just learn how to save it. So if you wanted to save this for the future, you could just go up here to log file and hit save, or you can hit the save log file icon here in the menu bar as well. Both work the same way. So we hit save and it asks me if we want to save it. And we're just going to put C7 throttle test. You could name that anything you want. So we just name it and put it in some place where we can find it and come back to it anytime. All right, some fun stuff. Let's learn how to open some log files and look at some stuff that's a little more complicated. So last night, a friend of mine sent me some log files. Let's take a look here. Let's just open up 811 log 2. You're now looking at a log file of our good friend Corey driving lunch money around on the streets. So this is his spirited drive around town. Pretty cool. This allows me to work with Corey remotely and do some tuning on his vehicle. And he can upload the changes that I make. But right now, we're just kind of like going for a little cruise with Corey here in time to take a look at what his drive looks like. If we zoom out, we can see the whole drive in the timeline. If we zoom in, we can take a look at like one event or one little section of his drive. So let's talk about the scanner here and break things down just a little bit. Oh, got you. So on this log file of Corey's here, we're going to talk about what we're seeing on the screen. Let's learn how to navigate the hptuners layout here. On our left is channels. It says channels, and these are all of our channels. These are our PIDs, which stands for parameter identification, but they're basically sensor outputs, or sensor inputs, excuse me, or ECU outputs. And they're all displayed on their each little channel here. So this is the channel section, this box here. This is charts and time, this section here, and this is time going this way. And everything is charted here or graphed here. Up above, we have our gauge panel. And you can see as we move through time, the gauges move with time. And then over here on the right, we have the graph on the right. And you can see as we move in time, this highlighted box is basically like the old game Battleship, showing us exactly where we are driving. This is on an older 2002 0411 ECU. If you're unaware, Lunch Money is a pretty nasty little twin turbo small block LS3 style engine, making a decent amount of power, and it's all controlled through factory ECU on a 2-bar operating system. But these columns and rows completely mirror what's in the ECU, allowing for very easy identification of what's happening in these cells and where you're going to find, you know, the spark advance and fuel on the VE table, that sort of thing. And this box is fully customizable. I like to call this more of a histogram. Graph is an easy way to refer to it, but it is very, very powerful. So let's break down a little bit of what we can do with layouts. What is a layout? Layout is the way that you see everything displayed here in front of you, right? So we got our channels here, our gauges here, our graph here, and our chart here. Our layout is how many things are added here, what parameters are displayed, what colors are they, what are their ranges, and the gauges, the same thing. How big is the gauge? Where is it laid out? What is the range? What is the parameter displayed? All of this is configurable in one thing called a layout. So, for example, your layout could just be a set of gauges. So let's just open a different data log. Here's a simple dyno pull of my little Datsun that I've built. This is me doing a single DynoJet dyno pull in that vehicle. But on my dashboard, if you're physically sitting in the car, I have a tablet, which is my gauges for that vehicle. It has a different layout. And we can just go, excuse me, I'm moving a little fast. I'm very comfortable in this environment. if we go to Layout, Open, we could choose a gauged layout. Here's my driving gauges layout. We select that and hit Open. This is what I see on the dashboard of my Datsun. And if I hit play, we can start from the beginning here. You can see I'm cruising at 60 in 4th gear. Dyno brake loads. And we're now doing a pull all the way up to red line and then off and then decelerating on the dyno brake. And then we can pause and stop that. We're using the stop and play button here. So we got ghost needles showing us the highest values. We can see the highest RPM, the highest mile an hour that was done on the dyno of that vehicle. So this is the gauge layout I chose for what I want to see on the dashboard. But if I was actually doing some tuning and I wanted to see it differently, I might use something more like the default layout. Well, it looks more like this. So the gauge layout is 100% savable, retrievable, storable way to change what you display and how you display it, what range you display it. This is a powerful tool. Let's take a look at these channel PIDs here. So we've established that different layouts allow us to do different jobs, but what if we want to add something or subtract something? Another call that I receive occasionally from friends that are using hptuners for one of the first times is, hey, this thing I'm looking for doesn't exist over here on the side of my screen, right? So let's go back to our C7 Corvette. Let's make sure we got the default layout loaded. So layout open, default layout. And we're going to close this data log of my Datsun doing a dyno pull. By the way, Instagram, DATLS7N, if you want to check that thing out. We're going to close this file, and that's going to blank this out. So we would just hit the close file, log file button here, or log file close here. And let's connect up to this Corvette I'm sitting in. We could go to Vehicle, Start Recording, or Start Scanning, or just click on the red record button, and it's going to handshake with the car and be connected. So we wanted to display something that's currently not displayed. So first of all, let's learn a real easy kind of pro-y advanced tip here. All of these PIDs or channels on our left-hand side can be simply changed by going Load Vehicle Defaults. Then hitting the record button, and you're back with all the defaults. So if you're on a new vehicle, especially if it's something that's not a bread and butter vehicle, if you're doing a Jeep or something, you know, if you're not in a Camaro or a Mustang or whatever, and you're not seeing the things that you're looking for, I highly recommend checking the Load Vehicle Defaults button. Keep in mind, adding any kind of PID has to be done while you are not scanning. You need to be connected to the vehicle, but not scanning. So let's add our first PID to this vehicle. And what we're going to add is desired idle, right? So we just want to see what the computer thinks it's commanding for idle. To do that, we would just make sure the car's on and that we're connected, but not recording. And right click on an empty channel or even a channel that has something, it doesn't matter. And we're going to insert a channel. And this is everything that's available to you to add here. And they're broken up in really simple kind of subgroups that make a lot of sense. We could navigate to idle by going to engine and then idle and then desired idle. Or you can just type in idle in the search and it'll pull up all the things that have idle in the title. So here's idle desired RPM. We double click that, and you can see on the left, it populated here on the left. We can close this now. You can see it's here. And let's connect back to our C7 Corvette. And now our desired idle PID is now being displayed with the vehicle off. And let's go ahead and just fire this car. And you can see as the car, it's actually fully cold at 95 degrees. You can see the idle actually adaptively changing. It's going through its pre-programmed ECU brain information. It's doing what it's told. We've been running for a little while. It's starting to drop down towards that lower idle. That's very cool. So the next thing we want to do is, what if you wanted to graph that desired idle over here on your screen, right? So let's come over here in the, chart versus time. We want this information to show up right here in chart versus time. How would we do that? Always remember that you have a left click and a right click. The right side of the mouse and the left side of the mouse. I'm going to right click right here on this. It's going to be chart layout. And we can add it in wherever we want, right? So you have these different groups, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can see them here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If we wanted to add it in right here, we could just hit the plus key to add a series, then click add the parameter that we want to display. We'll just throw it right in here. And we have to navigate to idle again. The simplest way is just to type in idle, right? And you can see something here that could be confusing. There's a lot of idle information. This little button right here, super cool. It says show only parameters backed by channels, right? So basically anything you've already added to your PID channel list, if you click this, that's the only, it filters through only the ones that are in that list. So there it is, idle desired RPM. Made it really easy to find. I'm gonna double click on that. Okay, now we're gonna show the desired idle. Let's learn some real extra things here. Let's spruce things up with a little yellow color so we can see it. And you can see a new series showed up here. Let's give it a name. We're gonna call that D idle for desired idle. And we get to select the range. You can see the range over here is all zeros. Let's do 2000 to 500. Look at that. You can now see your desired idle. If we play it back on the screen, you can navigate with your mouse, or you can play it back on your screen. And there's our desired idle. If you're impatient, I know none of you are impatient, but if you were impatient, you could go 10 times the speed. So here's our play button. Next to it is your speed button. If you wanted to zoom through, here's at 10 times the human speed right there. There's us going through to the idle, dropping to low idle. Let's go back to 1. Okay. What if you didn't care about the speedo and you really cared about your desired idle? You wanted to do some desired idle tuning. You could go to gauge layout up here. Remember, left click, nothing. Right click, options. Okay, so we right click and we go gauge layout in speed. So this is what's being displayed here. These are all the different gauges listed in the background, but we want to change this one to desired idle. So speed, we highlighted speed. It's displaying vehicle speed, but not for long. We're going to change a parameter right here. Left click, idle, show only parameters, desired idle, just like we did below. Bam, that's in there. Maybe we need to set our gauge up a little bit, right? We'll define it a little bit. Max 2,000, minimum 500. These are the amount of ticks that are here. That's a whole lot of ticks. How about something like 11? Oh, that looks nice, right? So we can close that. And now when we go through, we can see our desired idle. Oh, I like it so much. Okay. So we learned how to add a PID, display it on the chart, display it on the gauge. You could just go through and kind of do the same thing over here on the histogram. But we actually got some other things to talk about. We made a custom layout right now. How do you like that? We added a PID, we added a layout changes to our chart, and we added the layout changes to our gauge. How about we save that? So we come up to our menu bar and we hit layout, save layout as, navigate to wherever you want to save it. We got a nice folder here already. So we're going to save it as, you can click on another file and save right over the top of it, or we can just type in desired C7 idle. You don't have to have a C7 to do this, but maybe it helps. Who knows? Okay. So now we have a layout for desired C7 idle. We could open our gauges and go to my crazy gauge panel for my Datsun, or we could come right back to desired C7 idle layout. Boom, boom, boom. Very fast change from one layout to the next. I've been known to bang that stuff out while on the dyno or while on hairball rides in somebody's passenger seat. Once you get comfortable with this, you can make these changes pretty easily. Okay. So we have something really cool we can check out here. So we've worked our way through help and tools and layout. We checked out some of the things in vehicle, and we did a lot of log file stuff, but we need to circle back to the vehicle tab, right? So we have a vehicle tab here, or we have some vehicle items here. So you see the little diagnostic info here and vehicle controls and special functions here. That information is also under the vehicles tab in the menu bar. And you can go to diagnostic info here, or controls and special functions. Let's check out diagnostic info. This is something that's fairly rudimentary. New users should be able to use right away. So say you just connected to the car for the first time. We're going to close everything by hitting the close log file button. I'll push it 5 times to make sure it works because OCDs. And we're going to hit the start scanning button. So we're scanning, we're connected to the car. Going to hit stop. Here at the diagnostics and info icon in the menu bar, we connect to that and we can read the, oh, misclick. We can read the DTCs right here at this button in the bottom left-hand corner. Going to click on that. And you can see a bunch of information about the DTCs on the car. So no DTCs detected. We got a freeze frame. If your vehicle's capable of holding any freeze frame data, that would be when the DTC was set, what condition was it set under? If your vehicle supports that, it'll be there. No DTCs detected. We can clear the DTCs temporarily, not permanently, but if you had somebody left something unplugged under the hood, a fan was unplugged and it set a fan code, you could clear that code by hitting the clear DTCs button. And then you could recheck to see if it's a hard code, right? So there you go. There's where the diagnostics and info is. There is one item missing here, and that is a lightning bolt. And the current car I'm in does not support it. The Gen 3 LS cars in particular, so that would be LS1, LM7, LS6, LQ4, LQ9. If you make a custom operating system, an enhanced operating system in the editor, there will be a lightning bolt right about here where the little diagnostic and vehicle controls are, and that would allow you to do real-time tuning on your 0411 P59 Gen 3 LS1 computer. If you have a Gen 3, a normal LS1 from the early generations of LS, they support that. It is highly powerful. I've personally chosen to degrade on my LS7 Datsun from a 58 count tooth newer ECU, the E38, E67. Maybe this is, if you're an advanced user, you know what I'm saying, but in simple terms, I went to the older generation ECU with the newer generation motor so that I could get that option. hptuners gives you such power with the scanner. There's a lightning bolt that's located there, and it gives you real-time tuning. You can change the VE table, mass air table, idle table, all kinds of parameters while the engine's running, as you're running down the road, and then copy that information into your editor. Hugely powerful. If you want to see something about that in the future, if you want that to be a future episode, throw it in those comments. The good people at hptuners will decide whether, if you guys want it, let us know. Okay. Moving on, vehicle controls and special functions. So here at vehicle controls and special functions is we can click on this and we can actually control the car in real time. Be careful with this tool, folks. This is a powerful tool. So in a lot of cars, you can shift them. From this tool, you can shift the car. You can actually cycle the air conditioning clutch on and off. And what we're going to look at today is actually controlling the idle. So previously on the stream here, on the lesson, we added desired idle RPM, and we displayed it here in the charts and here in the gauges. Let's actually do a real world change with our vehicle controls and special functions. I'm going to fire this Corvette up. I'm going to connect to the Corvette by hitting the start scan button in the top menu bar. And you can see this car dropping to its low idle as it warms up and starts running. We're going to pull up the vehicle controls and special functions, and we're going to type in 1000 RPM. You can see we're currently dropping here to the 650s. It's coming to that low idle. If we hit the high idle, the idle control button, it's going to go to what we command it to. On and off, you just simply type in what you want and click it on. And then in real time, you can have influence. You can raise it, you can lower it in small increments or in larger increments. I'm physically controlling this engine's decision with the controls and special functions. When you turn that off, it defaults back to what the ECU's native programming is, what you told it to do or what the factory told it to do. It returns to that value. All right, gonna disconnect from the car here, disconnect from vehicle, and we're gonna close our log file here. All right, hptuners employees have sent me a question. I'm gonna read what we got here. Questions. Leo Vasic, hope I did not murder your name. I'm sorry, Leo. Leo asked, does the log timeout or end at timeout? Well, if I record this Um, as far as I know, I do not believe there's a limit to the log time. So um, I have done some incredibly long logs. I think the record for me is the drive to Vegas from Southern California, which would be 3.5 hours to four and a half hours kind of time. I've never had it log turn off. There might be some sort of buffer size limit, but that's going to be more related to your Windows hardware. But I mean, that would be an enormous file, probably days and weeks. I've personally gone hours of data logging. I do real deal fi Okay, so I don't believe that there's any limit. Let's do the next question here. Tom asks at AP Tuning, can you save and load from the buttons about the layout and channels as well? Yes, so you can save and load from these buttons here or these buttons here. They're the same exact thing. They provide the same purpose and function. Okay. Um, Leo also asks, can tuners share layout files with each other in the software, or does it get locked by the ID? No, everything is shareable. You can send everything. So um, if we go to the layout here and we open the layout, these are my different layouts here on my screen. They can all be sent out to the people that are that I'm working with, whether I'm the recipient or whatever. It goes both ways. You can send it to anybody. There's no locking of that information whatsoever. Um, Another advanced tip is the PID channels can be saved as a group. I will occasionally save, excuse me, my layout. Like, so if I had a C7 layout, I would save a C7 PIDs. It's very common for me to have a slim set and a full set. Um, as you slim down the channels, things tend to run a little bit faster. Not that there's a sampling rate problem of any kind. hptuners is very, very quick and gives you a lot of resolution. But if, especially on the older ECUs, if you want to increase what's coming in, you can kind of slim things and pare things down. But again, saving your channel PIDs as a name and your layout as a name, you can send that as a group with a log file, a tune file, the layout file, and your PID channels. You send those four things, the person on the other end is going to see what you see the same way you see it. That's a pretty powerful thing. And then you might be missing something. They can request that you add it in, or they can add it for you and then send it back to you. And then when you open it, it will be there. hptuners in my head, did you have something else I needed to cover? The question is, can you add a marker to the log while you are logging? I actually do not know the exact answer to that. I do not know if you can, and there is a possibility. I'll actually have to look into it, and that's a really great thing that you ask that, because if it isn't, it can turn into suggestion for hptuners. I've been tuning for so long, I'm pretty good at reading the log and knowing where things are. If there is other ways to mark things, for example, you could use something like a AC clutch cycle, or a special, a throttle blip. It's not uncommon to use an old school analog nuts and bolts way of marking your data log with some other input. So the hptuners device, the MPVI2, does have the Pro interface option available. There's nothing from letting your mind go wild with things you can do with the 5-volt data logging available on this. If you wanted to make up some crazy 5.5 timer and make a time code in 5 volts that goes to this, you could do all kinds of stuff with the 5-volt data logging that's available on the enhanced MPVI2 Pro deal. So there's other ways of doing things. hptuners has been, you know, I didn't mention this earlier, and it's a good thing it's kind of come to my mind, is when I talked about going to the help about menu earlier, I said that the updates happen. Updates happen with hptuners regularly. And it's always fun when you open it up and, you know, you've been tuning Jeeps. At some point, Jeeps were a new thing, tuning Jeeps on hptuners. And one day you open up Jeeps and all of a sudden you can change wheel and tire scaling. This was huge. It means I didn't have to buy a device to do that thing. And all of a sudden it's like something that came with something that I already own. So having additions, they're paying attention, they're listening, and they're improving their product all the time. I'm not a paid employee of hptuners. I'm here because I love the community and I love the product. It's been great to me. They've been great to me. And yeah, this isn't a paid deal for me. This is, I really believe in this product, and I know enough about it that I could share it with you guys, and I'm really glad you guys have joined me. So I think it's time to give away, I think we need to give away an MPVI2. Cool. Let's give away an MPVI2. We have a question, and the question is, how would one change the scanner from Fahrenheit to Celsius as the default unit? How would you do that? Change from Fahrenheit to Celsius or Celsius to Fahrenheit? Go ahead and post in the description, in the comments. Get those fingers moving. We want to know it. We're going to pick one lucky winner. Review my notes, see if there's anything I needed to mention to you guys. Oh, yeah, the okay. What is the full pathway to get from Fahrenheit to Celsius? That's the question. How do you navigate all the way to changing from Fahrenheit to Celsius? Is our question for the day to win MPVI2, 2 credits. You're going to love it. So okay, is that our winner, hptuners? Okay, we have a winner. The first person to actually put in the full pathway for Fahrenheit to Celsius is Omar Alessa. Is that correct, hptuners? Did I say that? AL-ESSA. You are a lucky winner of an hptuners MPVI2. We're happy to have you as part of the family. So Omar, if you can email marketing@hptuners.com, include your YouTube screen name, they will contact you, I believe, through YouTube message. Is that right? And they will contact you through email. So you need to go to marketing@hptuners.com, include your YouTube stream name, and they will contact you back through email as being a winner. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. There's more to come from hptuners. Keep an eye out for episode 4. There's a hptuners Instagram. I have an Instagram, tunedbytad.com. I also have an Instagram, LS7N. That's Datsun with the LS7 in the middle. Get it? I would love to have you join me on there, but hptuners, they're everywhere, all the social media outlets, Instagram, Facebook, now YouTube. Join us on the next live stream. Thanks for joining us today. Come on back.